I was developing the system, I wanted to emphasize that I wanted the system to be something that sustained itself, something that it didn't need anything else to prove it to be true, but that it proved itself to be true. Something, and what that would translate into is something that would be self-evident. And what that would end up meaning is something that would be discovered as opposed to something that I created. Something that I discovered instead of something that I created. Now, when I told a friend about this, and I described it in this way, in one of my last videos, I explained to him, he brought up something interesting that I kind of been using to explain it to people as well. He compared it to the scientific method. And from that time, like, I've been kind of thinking about it that way, and I kind of made this analogy. The scientific method is for the purpose of obtaining knowledge, whereas the system of practicality is for the purpose of achieving goals. So we have a system, the scientific method, we have a system to be able to obtain knowledge and to be able to obtain it exactly and be able to reproduce it, you know, whatever knowledge we have. But we also have to make a system to be able to achieve goals. And the reason why I compare it to that, the reason why I think that's a really good comparison is because if you think about how the scientific method was created, how it was discovered, it probably went something like this. People were already hypothesizing, people were already making observations, people were already experimenting and building conclusions, but the knowledge wasn't really happening in an organized manner, so that what people considered to be true there wasn't really a proof, there wasn't really an exact process and evidence to how to prove something true. And so, you know, if I see something and I say, oh, that's true, but is it scientifically proven? Like, we don't know yet, because we need to go through those steps to confirm it to be true, right? And until the scientific method was developed, people would only, you know, something may be true depending on your observations. And so the scientific method was developed so that your observations, and so that when you say that A causes B, you would know an exact process. You would put it through an exact process that would actually confirm, okay, A does cause B. And, you know, even though scientifically you have to be open to other conclusions, but it's a pretty consistent proof that A causes B. So that's what the scientific method is. Today, what I see in the world, I'm not saying this is true, like, of every part of the world or every culture, but from what I see and my experience in life, we don't really have that for achieving goals. People say, if you want to achieve something, you got to be persistent. If you want to be successful, you got to work hard. If you want to do this, you got to go through this process. But what do I see? I see that a lot of times I see a lot of people working really hard and working towards something, and the goal is not achieved. Why? Because we don't have a system that actually maps out the process to how to achieve the goal. Not a system that is as strict and as refined as the scientific method. And that's what I'm planning to build. Now, as I was developing this, I mean, to me, this feels like this is the answer to life. But I do understand this is not necessarily the answer to life. But just imagine how much the world improved after people had the scientific method. After people had a way to confirm what is true and what is not, or what are the things or the phenomena that are closer to truth than the things that are less closer to truth. Imagine how humanity changed. It was kind of like another level of being able to be consistent with your observations and with the things that you claim to be true. If we could only have that, if we could put the practicality system into the culture of all this and have something new so that people are achieving goals more consistently, and imagine what would that do for the world. Now, my original plan, you know, and as I'm going through this journey, like, my ideal vision was for me to be able to perfect the system, to create and work through and perfect the system. But I know that I'm only one person. I only have a limited amount of time in my life, and I only have one perspective of what the whole truth is, which is why my final vision of this was to kind of like have the system like permeate the culture so that it can be refined, it can be thought about, and other people can maybe add into it and refine it and perfect the system itself. And I mean, I've read a lot of books. I've read a lot of self-help books. I read a lot of books that take perspectives on how to achieve goals, but I also see a lot of excess, a lot of useless information in these books it doesn't really pertain to achieving goals. I think it's time that we refine this resource, and that we create a system that's refined so that people can start achieving goals more efficiently and more quickly.